I am thoroughly amateur. I also am Robert McKay. The channel, as you saw, am Whiskey for Beginners. And yes, I am ungrammatical sometimes. I'm going to shock those of you who have seen many of my reviews. I did research. I actually have facts. Shocking, isn't it? In Casablanca, I think it's a 1941 movie. Anyway, World War II was going on, but well, it had to have been 40 or 41, 39, 40, 41, because in the movie the United States is not yet in World War II. But there's a scene, the French, this is North Africa, Casablanca, in, I think it's Morocco. Normally I would know, but I think it's Morocco. The French have drowned out the Germans because it's governed by Vichy France, the collaborationist French regime that controlled southern France for most of the war. The Germans had been singing, I don't think it was Deutschland über alles, and if I mispronounce it, put it down to the fact I don't speak German. And the French drowned them out by singing, I don't speak French either, the closest I can come is the Marseillaise, however you put it, the French national anthem. And so Major Strasser, the German in command of the town, orders Captain Renault, the French policeman, to shut down Rick's bar. Rick's Cafe Americain, however you pronounce that in French. And so Captain Renault goes over, tells Rick, we're closing you down. Why? I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on here. And then a croupier, however you say it, I'm not a gambler either, he rushes up just then to Major Renault and says, you're winning, sir. I'm shocked, genuinely shocked that I remembered to do research. I didn't mean to take 3 minutes on that. I intended to get right to what I'm doing, but I don't script these puppies. This is a review. Pick it up, hold it somewhere you can get a better look at the bottom strip as well. I was in Kelly Liquors back on the 5th of May, 2026. I'm recording this just barely on the 23rd. To me, it's still the night of the 22nd of May. But I was looking for Hard Truth, hard or High Road Rye. I didn't see it, but I did see this, and I'd not heard of it before. It is the Knob Creek Blenders Edition, Batch 1. And I thought, you know, I've liked every other Knob Creek I've tried, which is the 9-year, the 12-year, and a Kelly Liquors store pick. Let me try this one. Well, the first glass I had, I didn't like. The second glass was pretty good. If it's continued to open up, this third glass, which I'll be reviewing, shouldn't be too awful bad at all. It cost me $45.99, 46 bucks. And if this was a Buffalo Trace deal, it would probably be 96 bucks. Buffalo Trace prices mediocre whiskey sky high and gets away with it because people have this exaggerated idea of Buffalo Trace. I just the other night recorded a video, a sipping and talking video, on that very thing, so I won't recap here. But I need to pour me some whiskey. Can't review it if I don't pour it. And I have taken to, with this new setup, doing thusly. rather than thusly. For me, it's easier if I hold the glass in one hand, move my notes, put the glass down here, put the bottle up on the platform. As I said, I did some research. Now, as far as I'm aware, Jim Beam has not released the mash bill for Knob Creek, but what I found was pretty much unanimous. 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% sprouted barley. This is, in fact, it says it right there. This is 10 years old, and it, let me see, what else can I find out about it? It's the Blender's edition. So, meticulously blended to highlight unique flavors showcasing depth and character. So it is not just a 10-year-old Knob Creek. It is Knob Creek, but it is 10 years old, and they blended it apparently differently than they normally do. You know, the 9, the 12, and the store pick are all recognizably the same whiskey, the same bourbon, but at different ages, different proofs, and of course the store pick is a single barrel. So this, you don't expect it, or you shouldn't expect it, to be just like other Knob Creek. And maybe that's why I didn't care for the first glass, although I think it was more than that. I hadn't really looked into it at that point. By the way, this is somewhere this is 106 proof. So apparently it's batch proof. They batched the barrels together, and whatever it came out at was 106. At least that's how I'm taking what I see. I could be wrong. They could have batched them and then proofed them down. I didn't look into that. You can't expect me to do everything right when I rarely do anything right. It does have alcohol. I'm getting the spike in my right nostril, which isn't good for much else. It does smell like Knob Creek, but not just like Knob Creek. By the way, got a pretty nice color to it. One of the reasons I like whiskey is I like to look at it. I like to look at the legs, and I don't show you the legs generally, but let me see if you can maybe possibly see some legs there. This is fairly viscous. It's taking forever to start forming legs. I'm getting caramel, a hint of peanut shells. Or is it peanuts? I might be getting both peanut shells and the peanuts themselves. Not Spanish peanuts, which have that red husk on them, and you don't see anymore. But I don't remember which variety, the variety you find nowadays. Something warm in there, something meaty. That might be what they mean by umami. But I don't know. I've never looked up umami, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a Japanese word. I speak that much Japanese. And partly because I spent a year in Korea and learned to love the country, partly because for almost 47 years I've been married to a Korean. I'm partial to Korea, not Japan. There's something in there that I'm having trouble quantifying. It's coming with the warm note, which I've never been able to nail down better than that. It's almost like something cooking. Not corn, but it reminds me of corn. Not caramel. There is caramel in there, but what I'm focusing on now is not caramel, though it reminds me of caramel. There's almost a hint of, or almost a note of corn tortilla in there. And I don't want to dig until I start imagining notes. I don't want to do that. I want to tell you what I genuinely get, but this is such an intriguing nose, I'm afraid if I dig too much, I'm going to start thinking I smell things that I don't, and I don't want to do that. There's a woody note in there now. And you'll notice I keep a swirling and a sniffing, a swirling and a sniffing. That helps aerate the whiskey, helps it open up. You'll remember this channel is intended for people who are new to whiskey, so I explain these things. And if you've been drinking whiskey since 1922, that's fine. You can watch a channel. I don't mind at all. I'm happy to have you. Something dark in there, not sure what. And normally for me, Knob Creek is a dark profile whiskey. I think it might be cinnamon and brown sugar swirled in together. I'm getting some butterscotch now. This is turning out to be a very complex nose. And although the alcohol is there, and I'm being careful of this right nostril, it is not a face burner at all. And 106 for me is not a terribly high proof anyway. That's only 6 proof points higher than the regular Knob Creek 9. Okay, I thought I felt a design on top of the seal, but it's just a crease in the wax. I think that's about all I'm going to get from the nose. So let me, I know where I'm going, but my brain went blank. It wouldn't spit out the words. Let me check on the mouthfeel here. I might should have known better, given that it is, or given that I have had 2 previous glasses, but the mouthfeel is just slightly thin for 106 proof. Now I'll get me a flavor sip. There's something else coming in on the nose, by the way. Almost kind of musty or moldy, which is bizarre. I've never got that from a whiskey before. I could have explored that sip more, but I got 2 notes. I got 3 notes altogether, but I got 2 that kind of startled me. First, I got cinnamon, which is a typical bourbon note. You're going to find it just about everywhere. But then I got this absolute blast of brown sugar, like I had a mouthful of brown sugar. And I'm not used to getting that much brown sugar. And if you pardon me a second, I should have pulled this out before I started recording. But there is a blood pressure medicine. Really, it's a cholesterol medicine, but they use it in at least some cases for blood pressure. Hydro something. I just think of it as hydro. And since I've been taking that, my allergies have moderated. Now, maybe it just is coincidental with a drop in the allergen level. But I'm not complaining. I still do get the allergies, though. And then after that blast of brown sugar, on my tongue, I got this sweetness that made me think of the agave in Desert or Devil's River agave bourbon, where they take bourbon and then infuse agave nectar into it, and sometimes that tastes like you're drinking sugar water. High concentration sugar water at that. And now, having tasted it and talked about it, I think I'm getting a hint of that here on the nose. Maybe not. But I haven't got to the finish yet, but I'm still getting finish. And you saw when I took that last sip. That's going to tell you something right there. That sweetness, the agave sweetness, and there's no agave in here. That's just what it tastes like. That is gone. If maybe there's just a little bitty bit of it left. I still got the brown sugar, still got the cinnamon, but in came some oak. Definitely oak. Not chocolate, although oak very frequently, almost always, turns into chocolate in my mouth and my throat. But this was just oak. It didn't transmute, but it wasn't unpleasant. I like some oak. I like a nice oaky whiskey. I've never had anything yet that was too oaky, although if I remember correctly, on the first glass, this stuff tried hard. But it's opening up very nicely. Flames. I swallowed, I opened my mouth, and right in here, somebody lit a blowtorch on me. But I held that sip longer than I have the previous ones because I was getting some black pepper. Now, this is not what I would consider a high rye mash bill. It's only 13%. Old Granddad is a high rye mash bill from Jim Beam. And, you know, you get into a rye whiskey, you definitely get more of a rye percentage. But for a lot of people, rye brings in spice. I generally don't get a lot of spice from rye. When there's enough rye for me to notice, like in that Hard Truth I was talking about, I get a mineral note like rock dust, and I get a vegetal note like you'd expect the leaves of a mullein to taste. But occasionally, rye will give me something of spice, and I think that's where that black pepper comes from. And as usual, I got a lot more from the nose than I'm getting from the palate. That's the way my system works, my physical system. And I could maybe try to dig out more, but I'm going to go on to the finish now. cinnamony oak with some black pepper in there, maybe some red pepper. That quickly goes away, and what I'm left with is just a little tingle on the front of my tongue and some oak elsewhere. And usually to get a finish, with a finished sip, I swallow more quickly, and I'm getting a hug now on that sip because I did, and less of the alcohol had evaporated before I swallowed. But I think with this finish, I'm going to need to hold it a while, let things work, and then give you the finish more. A little alcohol burn there from holding it. But the oak is more prominently there now. And it's definitely oak. It's not chocolate. It's remaining oak. There's a little strip of red pepper burn. If this is my tongue, it begins about here and goes all the way back in a strip down the middle. That's fading. The oak is increasing in prominence. It's becoming more woody. I wouldn't say it's like chewing on a piece of oak, but it approaches that. It's not too much oak. It isn't. But it is very discernible, detectable, definite oak. And it's drying out my gums along here, just the lower gums. People have spoken and written about drying oak. This is the first time I've ever experienced anything I would call drying oak. It is definitely an oaky finish, but not too oaky. Now, that depends on your palate, obviously. I have a video in my Whiskey Basics series on how everybody's palate is different. But for me, it's not too much oak. It's just right, just like the middle bear. Middle bear is porridge, middle bear is bed, etc. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Do kids even hear these bedtime stories, these fairy tales anymore? Excuse me. Now everything else is gone, but there's this faint oak and just a little bit of oaky tingle along here that just lingers and lingers and lingers. And since I first noticed it, every time I've gone back for another sip, it's still been there. That oak does not go away. If you like oak, you'll like this finish. Okay. Do I seem kind of haphazard and amateur? You noticed. You're getting smart in my old age. I ain't old, I'm only 66. I only turned 66 back in April of 2026, so. Of course, by the time you see this, I might be 126, if I'm still breathing. At that age, people have lived to that age, even since biblical times, even in the 20th century, but it isn't a likely thing. Summary. I don't know if every bottle will be this way for every palate, and subsequent batches may be different. As I've said, this is batch, where did I find that? Ah, right there. This is batch 1. So that whether it'll be a yearly thing, every 6 months, every 25 years, I don't know. But this bottle was not much on the first glass. The second glass, it was right good. Not an official rating, I'm just giving you summary. The official rating will come later. One of my levels is Right Fine. So please don't confuse them. This has opened up now by the third glass to be a really good bourbon. The price is right. I'd say it's definitely worth every penny of the 46 bucks I paid. It might, if it keeps opening up like this, it'll wind up being worth more than I paid. And Knob Creek is good at that. They produce some bourbon that is at least as good as the price, if not better. So if you see this Knob Creek Blenders Edition, batch 1, who knows how many other batches there'll be before I'm dust, I suggest you buy it. How about the rating? I go, and this rating scale, I don't know how well you can read it, especially the handwriting part. People today can't read cursive anyways, and my handwriting is bad enough that doctors are writing is better. But it has 8 levels, 1 at the bottom, 8 at the top, and I go straight to number 6, Fine. And is it that good? Absolutely. Is it another level up? I really can't go that far, at least not yet. I think that by the next glass, my 4th glass, it will probably be at that level. But for right now, it's number 6, Fine. And very close to hitting number 7. Just not quite. You know, if I had a decimal system, it would be like 6.95. But I give it a 6, Fine. That is 3.75 stars, almost 4 stars. It is 75 out of 100, or 7.5 out of 10. And as I say, I think it's going to be better yet. Okay, I am at 27 minutes, which is about 7 minutes. Shoot, I'm hitting 28 minutes, which is about 8 minutes longer than I ever intended at most. So I'm going to just stop. Here's how.